We're live in 5, 4, 3. In this Creator Series interview, I'm chatting with a creator who shares a very similar philosophy to me around creating music and why you should be creating music. Please welcome to Studio Live today, Matthew Stratton. How are you today, Matthew?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to admit right up front, Matthew had booked this interview for a week's time, and Pete jumps on and says, "Hey, Matthew, you ready for our interview?" And Matthew, being the obliging person he is, says, "Sure, Pete, let's go." So thank you, first of all, for being so flexible and me getting it totally wrong. For folks who aren't aware of you, what I like to start with is a little bit of like a musical origin story. So just getting to know you, what you do, and what got you into music. Why music? Why do you create music?
All right. So I guess my first experience with music was my sister played the cello in high school, and she was like first chair, and she would, bring her cello home and practice. So I was really influenced by her. So in the fifth grade, I joined the orchestra myself, and I played violin. And so that's how I started making music in the beginning. Yeah. The
Yeah, nice.
violin.
So starting with the violin and from there, so some of the things that you're doing on your channel now is not a violin channel. So what was the transition then from orchestral music and where you get to the sort of music you're creating these days?
Yeah, it was a nice evolution. So actually being in an orchestra is a good foundation because I learned how to read music, count time, scales. So I got a little bit of music theory, learned how to play with people, things to that nature. But whenever I was 12 years old, my dad gave me a Fender Telecaster, like his Fender Telecaster. Yeah, and it's great. I didn't realize what I had at the time. So it just sat in a box, in the case for a year.
Yeah.
And then when I was in seventh grade, a friend, or somebody I was in orchestra with actually invited me over his house, and he was like, "Yeah, we're going to start a band. Me and my brother are going to start a band." He had like a Casio keyboard that he pulled out the closet, and then we would play like yardsticks. We would take yardsticks, and I would play guitar in the yardstick. And I was like, "Well, I guess I should probably learn how to play guitar." So he asked me to be in the band. We started a band. So so that was going into eighth grade. So that's when I learned how to play guitar. I took lessons for 4 months, but then I learned how to read tablature. And then I was like, well, guess I'm done with lessons.
That's so cool. Yeah, that is the way for a lot of folks. I know that you're like, yeah, I learned guitar. It's like, what's that? I know CAGED, and I know how to play some tab. Yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah, because my guitar teacher, he started teaching me scales. Like I learned the G scale, and I learned some chords. And then he just started writing tab out on a piece of paper, and it's like, oh yeah, you can learn this song and this song. So I learned like "Injustice for All" from Metallica and One. And I was like, well, if you're just gonna write it on a piece of paper, I could just buy the book. And I did. I bought the Metallica tablature book, and then I just learned them on my own. So I was like, oh, I'm done here.
Very cool. Love it. And so from that, what got you into, because for those that don't know your channel, you're all about helping people create music using different hardware and software and tools. So what got you into that next phase? So you're creating your own music, you're into your music, and then you're like, hey, I want to teach others. I want to help other people create their music. Where did that come from?
All right. So another thing that I enjoyed about playing the guitar is I met somebody when I was in eighth grade, and he came home one day to my house, and he had been playing guitar longer. He actually had a guitar teacher like down the street, amazing guitar teacher that plays locally around here, a blues guitar teacher. And he just started teaching me. He was like, yeah, you want to learn this Rage Against the Machine song? It's super easy to play. And he taught me the next thing, power chords. He taught me how to play power chords. So that person ended up joining our air guitar band. So we had a singer, we had a bass player, we had a guitar player, and then we needed to find a drummer. So across the street from one of my best friends, I found a drummer. He had a snare drum. I went to his house one day, and he was playing the snare drum, like playing rudiments on the snare drum. I was like, you're our drummer. None of us knew how to play music, but we were going to start the band, except for the guitar player knew some stuff. So that's how I got into the next phase.
Very cool. Oh, that's very cool. And we'll dive into a little bit more about sort of what you do now and what you're creating with, because you've got a few specialties on your channel, so we'll talk about those in a little bit. So what is it like right now that you primarily use to create music? So in terms of sort of hardware and software, what's your work look like for right now creating music?
So the phase after being in a band and making EPs and playing live shows, you know, a lot of the people we graduated high schools went different ways. So it was kind of a challenge for me to learn to play with people anymore. So I discovered something called the MPC 1000. And so I bought the MPC 1000 because I discovered, okay, you can produce music on your own. So I put two and two together. So I bought the MPC 1000. I had my guitar and I bought a synthesizer. I had the Korg MS 2000. And I took these three devices and I would just play live. I would just hit play on the MPC Live, or I'll get to the MPC Live in a second, but I pushed play on the MPC 1000 and I had a drum beat going. I would play my guitar to it, and then I was able to sequence the keyboard out of the MPC 1000. So that's how I learned how to compose music on my own. And I took a break for a long time because there was a point in time where I had lost my job. I'd lost everything. So I was selling my gear. I was living at my mom's house. It got to a point where it's like, I didn't even want to continue. I was like cleaning my guitar. I was actually physically cleaning my guitar. I was about to take it to the pawn shop. My mom was like, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with music and I'm just cleaning this to sell it on. She's like, you can't stop making music. That's your passion. So that's why I carry this shirt. That's why I say what I say, continue creating music, because if I can be that message to somebody, like, don't stop creating music, just keep creating music. If you have to, like, if you were in a band before and you have to do it on your own, do it on your own. Like, there's no shame in doing that. So eventually I started playing music again because I went to college. I got a job, which I'm doing now. So that's paying for me to live. And when I started playing again, I learned about, I tried a few things. I tried like the RC 505 to play live because I want to play live. Like, that's my goal, is to actually play live. But then I discovered the MPC Live, and I discovered you could actually record audio tracks inside the MPC now. So I bought the MPC Live. So
very, very, very cool. And we'll talk about that because there's a couple of comments here from the folks live. By the way, thanks to those that are watching live here on YouTube. Hello, Sion. We've got Matt Malone, Kyle TV, Josh Gates, Foxy Nirvana, Fallen Creature, Jan Vanderberg, Darren Deneluk. Thanks for being here. And someone, sorry, we've got, I'll press the one first. So Foxy Nirvana says, awesome MPC tutorials. So you've already got a fan in the awesome Studio Live Today community here. And then followed up by, what is an MPC? So this is a question that I have, because I must admit, I stumbled across you and your channel when I was looking to buy a new mixer, because you have the Zoom Live Track L12, and I was looking for a mixer that did exactly that. And then they brought out the L8, and I'm like, sold, that's exactly what I want. So that's sort of how I found you. And then I've actually been diving in because I knew nothing about the MPC. My background's different in that I was in, DAWs on computers, and then on the iPad, I kind of skipped a lot of the whole hardware side of things in terms of creation. So why don't you give us the 1 minute, what is an MPC and why should you use one and why are they cool?
All right, in 1 minute, originally MPC stood for MIDI Production Center. So it was a device that sequenced MIDI. It was a standalone unit. You didn't need a computer to use it. Currently, it can do a lot more than just MIDI. It could do audio. So now they kind of changed it to mean Music Production Center. So right now I'm using the MPC Live as a standalone device, which is a music production center that I can sequence MIDI internally with sounds internally, so I can make drum programs. I could sequence externally, so I can plug synthesizers into it, and I can record guitar directly into the device. So it's an all-around unit to make music with.
That's there you go. That's exactly everything you need to know, and it's very cool. If you do check out Matthew's channel, so the easiest way I'd say to do that is to head to his website, so MatthewCreating.com. There's also a link directly to your YouTube channel, to your Instagram, so if folks want to follow you down there, they can do that. But yeah, like I say, you'll dive in there and you'll learn so much, and you'll probably come away wanting to get an MPC Live after you watch a few videos, because some of the cool things I've seen you doing recently, like sampling from like turntables and like putting in audio and then mixing it with MIDI and then doing sequencing and playing along live. It's like, yeah, it's very cool. Like for someone like me that uses obviously computers and iPads and iPhones and digital audio workstations primarily, I'm like, yeah, how cool would that be to not have to have anything else, to just have one machine and then just plug in and go. And I'm all about simplifying the music creation process, and it sounds like that would be a pretty cool option. So there you go. Hopefully that's if you were like me and you were completely unaware of what an MPC was and what it did, now you probably want to go and buy one. So we're sorry. Cool. So so we talked about, oh, by the way, we had a fan here. So Darren says that And Justice for All is my favorite album of all time. Yeah, gotta love some Metallica. So what got you into the sort of style of music? So what sort of drove that, going from starting on the violin, playing some guitar, and obviously rocking out through that sort of period, now probably doing a bit of a mix of everything? Is it a bit of
Right.
electronic along with a little bit of live stuff? What is it that sort of influenced you and got you into the style of music that you love to create now?
All right. So whenever I joined my first band, we would cover a ton of songs, like all the popular songs. It was at the time, you know, in Justice for All, we covered some songs in Justice for All. The Black Album, Metallica Black Album was popular, so we covered songs there. We covered like Marilyn Manson songs, Local Age, Deftones. I love Deftones. They're like one of my all-time favorite bands.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the transition. So I went from being in violin to playing rock.
Yeah.
All right. And then obviously after that, because there was a point in time I was like, I could only listen to metal, I can only listen to rock music. And
Oh,
then of course I was always influenced by these other music, like I wasn't allowed to listen to Snoop Dogg and different rap music, but still in the background I knew it's like this type of stuff was there. So I was like, no rap, no electronic music, no EDM, all that stuff sucks. But eventually I just became more open because I don't know, you just experience things. And I've actually had people come over and like rap over different or rock songs, like, and start breakdancing in the middle of jam sessions and stuff. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I realized music's more about the connection rather than specific genres. So I started branching out. I started listening to more hip hop, more electronic music. And eventually I came across a group called Deep Puddle Dynamics, which is a hip hop group on Anticon Records. They're not like hugely popular, but they were kind of popular in the underground scene. And I realized at the time that they were using MPCs to produce that hip hop music. So that's what really brought me to learn what an MPC was at the
yeah.
time in hip hop. So that was the transition there.
Yeah, and look, and I think that there's probably many people watching this that are very similar or in a similar boat. I know that I am. It was very much. I still remember back in the days there was the grunge guys and there was the what we called techno back then. I don't even think anyone says techno music anyway, but basically EDM. So there was the grunge guys and there was the dance music techno guys, and then you were like, oh no, I hate you, and I only like the people that like the things that I like. And then as you grow and you develop, you're like, actually, some of those hip hop beats, some of those EDM beats are actually kind of cool. And I think, bands like Rage Against the Machine kind of did the rap metal thing where they brought everything together and they said, hey, why can't we all just get along? And then, we were able to go, oh, actually, it's kind of cool to have a bit of a DJ scratch and a beat behind some rock and distorted guitars. It's actually kind of even better than just one or the other. So, I'm sure a lot of people are there nodding along going, yep, that's me. And trying different styles. And I think you said something cool in there amongst that, which was it's not about the genre, it is just about creating and appreciating music for what it is and connecting with people. So very, very cool. Now this one, a question I ask a lot of people, and maybe this is going to be a very easy one for you to answer, but maybe not, maybe you'll surprise us. What's your favorite tool, like hardware or software tool, for creating music?
Okay, so currently it's the MPC Live. I have hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel about it. And the reason why I say it's the MPC Live is because now recently, like one of my last videos, I have a new setup where I actually have my guitar plugged into it and I can go like back in the day. It's bringing me back to a time where I was able just to play guitar to it. I have it like set up where I could stand up and play guitar. So now I can get more of the energy rather than sitting and like clicking on the computer and then like sitting and playing guitar. I'm able to stand up and play guitar and record my guitar right into the MPC Live. So the MPC Live for sure.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think that one might be an easy question, but it's and it's for the same reasons that I know a lot of folks on this channel are into mobile creating, and because I focus a lot on the iPad and the iPhone, it's the same sort of thing. Is that you can take your rig anywhere. So like last night, I was recording some bass and some guitar parts for a new track, and my kids were here in the studio because they take over and they play games on my computer, and I'm like, oh, what do I do? I'm like, hello, you got a mobile studio, you pick it up and you put it somewhere else and you start recording. And I think so that same sort of thing for having like a hardware tool that you can just unplug from your speakers, pick them up, put it somewhere else, plug back in, pair of headphones, you're away, you're creating music again. So that is super cool.
Yeah, and the MPC Live is battery powered too. So once I record my guitar in there, if I did want to take it on the couch, I could just take it on the couch or wherever. Go take a walk in the park and then sit somewhere and work on my music. It's actually really cool. And then another thing I want to say is when I'm done with it, there's an export option. So I can bring it into Ableton Live. I like to use Ableton Live and mix it, add different things, vocals, guitar, whatever I want afterwards. But it's just the creation process is good to have it live.
And that's a good thing to know as well, because I know a lot of people like to do that. They might create on one tool and then they like to mix and master and finish on something else. So to know that you can also export is pretty cool. Speaking of the sort of the mixing and mastering and that sort of process, on the software side, it's obviously using the MPC and using the hardware tool to get your ideas down and to record and to get things in. Are there any specific, obviously Ableton, you've just mentioned there, any other sort of plugins or apps or software that you like to use that you think is really helpful, that if you had to say to someone, hey, this is how I get a really cool sound, what would that be? Or is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, I think I use Ableton Live as far as in the box. I can't use anything else because I've tried Pro Tools and things. Pro Tools is a headache. It's so difficult, so challenging. Ableton Live, you just plug the stuff in and it works.
Yeah.
So I love Ableton Live. If you're looking to do stuff in the computer, it's just so you can mix, you can master, you can do everything in Ableton. That's like I'm sure you in GarageBand can mix and master. Like on your, your iPad or whatever you're using. I think you're using the iPad, right?
Yeah.
So Ableton Live. Now the MPC Live, not so much. I wouldn't really mix and master on it. It's more of a creation tool for me.
Yeah.
But I do want to say this, like whatever tool that you actually do physically have, if you have anything, use it, learn it inside and out, because I ran into a issue where I was trying this DAW, this one. When it was all new to me, I tried like 10 different DAWs. And I realized looking back, I was like, if I would have just picked one of them and like just stuck with that one thing and then learned it for a year or two, they all do the same thing really in the end. If you're getting that capable DAW, just use whatever you have.
I love that. And again, I think when I sort of started following your channel and your philosophy again, the continue creating, I mean, my catchphrase here is create, record, release, because I see so many people just dabbling in the creation and the recording side, and then they're not finishing songs and releasing. And I think just you going through that process, and exactly as you say, don't wait to get the thing, because the thing in your head that you think is going to be the one thing you buy that's going to suddenly make your music next level, it's not actually going to do that. You're going to be underwhelmed by the results you get from the gear. But like you say, whatever you have now, if you learn it inside and out and you learn how to get the absolute most out of it, then you're going to be creating really cool music. So we're on the same page there for sure. I've got some questions here from the folks that are here live. If you are here live and you've got a question for Matthew, please drop that down in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. A question here from Sion, which is a good one, especially in the current environment. What's your take on collaboration after working in a team and solo? What do you think are the plus and minus of each? So I guess going back to your band days and collaborating and making music with a group of people versus doing everything yourself. What's your take on what the pros and cons are of doing it each way?
All right. So if you have a team of people that work together, like I was in a band, we had 5 members. And when we worked together, like we were together like 2 years. And when we worked together, it was amazing. Like you could get stuff done. There's like a lot, like at the time, all I played was guitar. I played the guitar, the drummer played the drums, the bass player played the bass, the singer sung, and the other guitar player played the guitar. So we all had our roles. And like, say, for example, if the other guitar player came up with the guitar part, I would just simply have to add to it. And then the drummer would simply play. And it's an amazing environment when everybody's taking care of their own role. So I think it's really easier to work with people if you have the right people. But there was a point where I couldn't find the right people. So that's when I started doing it on my own. And doing it on your own is a lot harder, I would say, as far as you have to learn drums now, you have to learn bass, you have to learn guitar, you have to be a producer when you're doing it on your own. You have to produce everything. So, I mean, obviously, once you figure it out and you get your own method, it can be easier because you have your own thing going. But to actually learn, it's definitely more challenging on your own, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's the beauty part of everything being digital, and the fact that we're here in two different countries in two very different time zones having a chat about music is that you can collaborate, you can talk to other people, you can work with other people remotely, so you can kind of get the best of both worlds. And I know I do that. I'm terrible at programming drums, for instance, and I've got a bunch of people that I lean on pretty heavily when I'm working on a song, and I'll be like, "Can I send you a track? Can you just put some drums on this? And if you've got some time to play a drum track?" And thankfully, I got cool people that will say, "Yeah, sure." And then my original drum track compared to theirs, again, just being able to have that
Yes.
flexibility is so cool. So, but no, I do like that yeah, when you do have that group collaboration is cool, but eventually, again, you do want to. I think there's value in learning to be your own producer, and especially these days, you've got to be everything. And I know we'll talk about YouTube in a moment, but I know for you running a YouTube channel as well, you got to be everything. Your PR, your marketing, your sales, your editor, your everything when it comes to that. So it's the same for musicians. Like when you're an independent
Right.
musician, you are everything, and you have to do everything yourself. So learning all about it is a journey, but it's definitely worthwhile doing. We've got a fan of yours in here, Derek Deep, says Stratton
Sure.
is
What's up, man?
best. um, we had another question. It was from Sion again here, which is interesting. So with your workflow, getting into sort of that detail, when you're sending from the MPC, do you send the MIDI data out of there into Ableton, the audio, or both? So does it send out sort of, if you wanted to re-trigger a sample with the MIDI, do you send that, or do you find it sort of just you mix it down and you send just audio out to then mix in Ableton?
Both.
Yeah.
Like, so the MPC is powerful, or in itself, you can put your own audio sounds to trick. Like, you could have a MIDI drum program, or MIDI drum kit. They call them drum programs.
Yep.
So you can trigger MIDI, that drum program within it. And there's synthesizers that are built into it. So you could trigger things internally, but you can also trigger things outside the box. Like I have a Minotaur, like a Moog Minotaur over here. Okay, and then I have Electron Digitone that I'm sequencing from the MPC. So you could do both, really.
Yeah. Very cool. And probably a follow-up question then. And Sion's asking all the questions. He's obviously very interested. I think there's an MPC in Sion's future. When you're sampling from your MPC, are there any sites? So do you get samples from anywhere? Like obviously you create your own and you can trigger your own. Is there any tips for if someone's starting out, if they want to find good quality samples to use?
Well, so if you're starting out on your own, you're not really worried about copyright or anything. Just use anything. Like you could sample from other songs and use records. You could use anything that you could plug into the MPC Live. I won't say what. You can use any audio source and plug it into the MPC Live because it's line level. Now there are sample packs that you could buy, which are cool. They're awesome. That because they're going to have like professional quality drums that are already like polished for you. You might have to tweak it just a little bit with the EQ, but so like they're on the website. There's a lot of independent people. I like to go to NPC samples.com and get a lot of my sample. Is hashtag not sponsored, but I really like npcsamples.com to find a lot because they have instruments. They have sampled instruments that are multi-sampled, so they're really detailed, like bass, keyboards, trumpets, strings, things like that.
Very cool. There you go. There's a couple of tips there. Two for the price of one. Yeah, use what you got again. And again, especially if, like you say, if you're starting out, I think people get really worried. I get a lot of questions about copyright. They're saying, "Can I use this? Can I use that?" And I'm like, without being too harsh, and you're probably not going to like sell 1 million copies of the first song you produce. So it probably doesn't matter that much if you're just creating it for fun. Learn how to do it, and then when you're getting to the point where you're going to release and you want to make sure that you're covered, absolutely be careful of copyright and make sure that you're using samples that you can. But a very, very good question. We are rapidly running out of time. These things fly by, I know. So a couple more questions here. One thing I like to ask folks is, what would you say is your proudest moment since you started creating music? So since you've been creating music and creating tutorials and videos and sharing your knowledge with other people, is there one standout moment that you go, yeah, that's what I put my finger on as the proudest moment so far?
Well, I mean, there's a combination of a lot of small things because anytime somebody says you've inspired me to make a song, that's awesome to me. Like anytime. Like recently I did a kind of a sample challenge where I recorded a sample from a record into the MPC Live. I sent it out to people to make their own song out of it. And then I got like 20 submissions back of people who actually made songs out of a sample that I sampled. And I shared that on my YouTube channel. And to me, that is amazing. Like I just did the one simple thing and it inspired somebody to like make a song. So
Yeah,
to me, that is an amazing gift. So I'll go with
absolutely.
that.
That's an excellent answer, and yeah, it is super humbling. Like that we sit here in our audio caves, and then we put out things, and then someone says, "Hey, I wouldn't have made this song if I didn't watch that one video." And you're like, "Wow, really? Yeah, that's so cool." Like, it is. It's very cool that people can be inspired, and it's good and good work to do if you can get it, and anyone can. And in fact, it's a good segue over to your YouTube channel. So, how long have you been creating tutorials and videos on YouTube for now?
So I started doing YouTube over 3 years ago. My first video was me unboxing a violin. I just put a beat that I had made, several years ago of me just opening up a box. Because
Yeah.
whenever I started to make music again, like I was like, okay, I have a job. I'm making enough money to live. I got to start making music. Like there's no two ways around it. So I bought a violin. I was like, well, let me go back to my roots. So I unboxed a violin. It was like a $60 violin. And then I put that up there, and I got comments on it. I got people commenting, "Oh, I have the same one," or "That's really cool." So from there, I bought I did a few things, like I was using Machine, Ableton Live, and just doing different things. Oh, okay, this is how I do a violin beat. And then I went over to the RC505 to play live guitar, and then I figured out the MPC Live. I did a couple videos on that, and somebody was like, "You need to break down this box." So that's when I just started doing MPC Live like over and over and over. Now I'm starting to branch out because now I've figured out what I want to do with it. So now I'm getting to the point, okay, let me make more full songs. And I'm want to start working on like an EP or an album now that I have my setup completed. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Very, very cool, and I think it's a good message for those that are maybe wanting to start doing this, because I think a lot of folks that are musicians, I always say that music and video kind of go hand in hand, because it's all that AV, that audio video side of things. And if you are learning, one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And my story was almost
Yes.
exactly the same. That the reason that I started creating videos is that I couldn't find the tutorials that I wanted to watch. So I thought, okay, I gotta find out this stuff. And once I worked it out, I'm like, hey, maybe there's other people like me that want to learn the same stuff that I just learned. So yeah, you could say that, hey, you're not an expert because you're learning it as you go along. Or you can say it's the best time to be teaching, because as you're learning it, you know how you interpreted it and how you absorb that information, and you can pass
Yes.
that on to other people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that experts get wrong, because they're so far ahead of the game. They don't know what it is to be learning it. So that's one of the advantages that I think I have, or anybody starting out has, when they're teaching it, is because you're seeing it, like you learned it yesterday, right? So you still have that memory of what it was like to learn it. So you could teach it to yourself yesterday. And like, somebody's going to benefit from you teaching on that level.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're spot on. And I often say that people are like, oh, you should move up. And it's funny. They're like, yeah, use GarageBand to use your, when are you going to use Pro Tools? And to your point before, I look at Pro Tools and it gives me an instant migraine, because it's just, there's too much going on. And I'm like, that doesn't work for my workflow. There's plenty of people out there that love Pro Tools and will teach you Pro Tools and you can learn Pro Tools from. But for me, I want to keep creating music, again, to continue creating. I don't want to have to spend my time learning something new, unless it's something that's going to help
Right.
my workflow or that's going to work for me. And that's where I think the opportunity is out there for every musician and every creator. You're already a creative person. Why don't you document what you are creating, and why don't you share that with other people? You'll be absolutely stunned and surprised how many people will engage with that and how many people you'll help simply by sharing your experience, and share your failures as much as your successes, because learning what doesn't work is just as valuable as learning what does work, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Agreed.
Cool. So we're right on the end here. So I did want to thank you. We'll finish up in a moment, and I'll say thank you for being here on the channel and for being here a week early, because Pete apparently can't use a calendar, but that's okay. We'll work on that one. What is the one question I like to ask at the end here is, if someone came to you and said, Matthew, what's the one piece of advice that you would give me? I'm just starting out in creating my own music. What's the one thing that you would pass on to them as encouragement, motivation, or advice?
All right. So if you're just starting out creating music, that means you have something you're creating music with. And again, to my point earlier, just create music with that device, like as much as possible. Like learn whatever you're learning. Like if you're learning the guitar, spend every day playing the guitar. That's it. Like don't spend too much time watching other people and be like, oh, I wish I could do this and this. Just do it, because if you pick up guitar and you hit the E string and it makes a sound, you're creating music already. You've already succeeded. So keep doing it.
Continue creating, you might say. Absolutely. No, I agree with that. And yeah, it's so important. It's weird for you and I, who obviously we would love people to watch our tutorials and to watch our channels and do all those great YouTube-y things. But
yeah, there's a time and place for it, right? But don't get hung up. Don't get in analysis paralysis where you're just watching it and watching it. You're like, oh yeah, he's doing this and this. I need to do this. Don't get overwhelmed with it. There's a time and place for it, but just make music. Take time. Schedule time in your day, 30 minutes a day, to play your instrument. You know.
Absolutely. Very sound advice. Love it. Thank you so much for being here. Where can folks go? Where's the best place they can go to check out everything that you've got going on and to catch up with all of your work and music?
All right. So right now, I mean, you could check out my YouTube channel. I don't really have I have a lot of jams on there, but they're spread out like all over the place and nothing's really polished. I do have a SoundCloud. So if you go Matthew Creating on SoundCloud, there's some songs on there where there are just some of the jams that I have done on YouTube that I uploaded there, and some collaborations as well. Collaboration is awesome. It takes you half the battle off of you. So yeah, there's some collaborations on there as well.
Very cool. And you can get to all of that at MatthewCreating.com, as we mentioned earlier. A good place to start out with that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being on the show today, Matthew. Any parting words for the Studio Live Today community?
Well, first I want to say thank you, Pete. You have over 1,000 videos on your channel, so you're an amazing resource. I appreciate your resource, like your insights. I do watch your channel from time to time. So I do appreciate it, from one creator to another. And to your community, yeah, keep checking out Pete's channel. He has some sound advice here. So, and then obviously continue creating music or continue creating video. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. Never give up.
Keep creating. Very sound words. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, folks. We will see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.